Where them Catholics at? Yeah. Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bitches?
And welcome back, everybody. It's the Catholic Convert Show. And as usual, it is me, Jeff, your favoriteest hostess with the mostest. And over there is Ed, the chief key grip, who manages all of the technical things for the show, which I didn't realize there were technical things for the show, but it's all right. We're back, and it's another glorious day that God has given us.
Certainly is.
Yeah, it really is. You sound really enthused. I'm telling you. You need to tone it down a little bit, Ed. A little too much. Like, certainly.
Listen,
you need to tone it down, all right? The microphone can only
I'm-
take so much. The compression's going to just give out.
I'm excited, actually. No, because we have, the Feast of the Assumption coming up.
Yes,
and,
we do.
I was born and raised and still go to the parish of the Assumption, my Byzantine Catholic Church. We are very big on the Blessed Mother in the Byzantine Rite. We
Well,
talk
you
about
should
it
be in
constantly.
any right, but
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you go to when you sit in Byzantine liturgy, man, you have no doubt about how we feel about our Blessed Mother, the Theotokos, if you will. And but I'm very excited because I realized that there's this parish that's right on the beach, at kind of in the town that I hang out when I go to the
probably
beach.
Star of the Sea, right?
Well, no, there's 7 of those in New Jersey. 7.
I was going to say, there's a whole lot of Star of the Sea
yeah.
named parishes that are right on the beach.
Yeah, and I love the one in Cape May. It's beautiful, but it's actually has nothing. It's St. Catherine of Siena, but down the street from there is Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and those two parishes get together on the Assumption every year. They have mass, and then they have a procession down to the water, across the beach down to the ocean, and they bless the ocean. I think that's so cool, and so I'm thinking I might have to attend that this year. Nice early morning,
Very
get out
cool.
there, and and they carry a statue of the Blessed Mother down to the water with them. I think that's so
Nice.
cool. Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
I'll let you know how that works out.
Yeah, well, my plans for Thursday are simply going to the 7 p.m. mass, and we'll also have some blessing of herbs that we can leave as gifts to Our Lady. Last year, I took a clipping of rosemary from my garden and left it there for Our
Interesting.
Lady. I mean, it's rosemary. Come on.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Yeah. This year, no such luck because the weather's been horrible and we didn't grow anything this year. So no one got to eat. No, we did get to eat, but we didn't grow anything this year outside of growing chickens and ducks. But you have to be careful about how deep you plant those.
That is true.
Yeah. Big issue. But that's so stupid. But no, just hitting the 7 p.m. mass. I will not have my holy hour of adoration that evening because I didn't know this until recently. I actually had to ask someone, what is the protocol on holy days of obligation if that happens to fall upon the day that you have a holy hour? And I'm weekly on Thursday, and 99% of the time, in the Latin Rite, the holy day of obligation falls on a Thursday. So I could go to an 8 a.m., a 9:30 a.m., a 12, or a 7. And I've got too much stuff to do during the day to make it to an earlier mass. So the 7's all I got. So I do have a co-adorer who is attending an earlier mass, and she will take over the spot to make sure that our Blessed Sacrament is kept company during the holy hour between 8 and 9, since I will be on the other side of the wall attending mass.
Well, there you go. So you've got that. Yeah. You've got that other added issue there, is that you're like a 3 days journey away from your church, whereas
that is true.
You got to pack the car. You got to send letters out to people, and get contact information and stuff.
We have
and
waypoints set up along the route where we can stop for resupply.
it's crazy, But for me, I honestly, and I haven't been there in years and years, but I can walk. If I walk out my front door, if I walk across the street, I look down a street that's kind of perpendicular to mine, I can see a Catholic church. So I'm actually within about a minute and a half walk to a Catholic church that I don't go to. But
you're way too close to civilization for me. I can't do that.
yeah,
I'm not in the sticks, right? I live in I guess you could call it a semi-rural area. I'm still 20 minutes away from what you could call a city. Not a town, but an actual city, right? 20 minutes away. And I don't mean city with skyscrapers and things like that. Just, it's a city. We got, I don't know, 270,000 people living there.
Yeah.
So I think that qualifies as a city. Sure. And on the other direction, I'm about 15 minutes away from another one. But I do like it where it's at least a 5 to 10 minute drive of seeing nothing but the odd residential housing area. And I don't mean cul-de-sacs or things like that. I mean, the little neighborhoods that are around just to get to the grocery store. I don't want to be, I walk down the street, I can spit out my window and hit the neighbor's wall. I couldn't live like that. My wife's sister lived in a neighborhood like that in Killeen, Texas, because her husband was stationed at Fort Hood. And okay, the house is nice. The backyard was maybe a third to a half of what I have now for mine. But it was still so ridiculous. You have this narrow hallway in between your house and the neighbor's house that you have to get through. And it's just, I can't do that. I need some space. I need, at my house, I've got at least 100 to 200 feet in all directions around my house with nothing else. I've got neighbors, but my yard's fenced in, their yard's fenced in, and there's significant space between our houses.
Yeah. My best setup was I lived on a cul-de-sac for a while, for about 25 years, where my house was, on one side of my house was a creek, and on the other side of that was about 100 acres or so of woods. So
nice.
And behind me was about a 15 or 20 acre field. So that was really nice. But my next move, I will tell you this, will be where I'm situated, like kind of right between the Pine Barrens and the Jersey Shore. So I'll be kind of out in the sticks as well. And that way I can either go out the door and hang a right and go into the forest primeval, or hang a left and hang out on the beach, because that's the only way to do it. Oh, you know what else?
I mean, I get it, but you like the beach stuff.
Oh my gosh, love it.
I only like going to the beach in the wintertime. I'm a stickler when it comes to things like that. Same as I am about where I live. And I guess you could call it a loyalty to a habit or to a preference. Like, I can't make exceptions for things like that. Yeah, but it's got 37 bedrooms and comes with a butler and a car service. I don't care. It's too close to the neighbor's house. It's free. Doesn't matter. I'll pay 3 times as much as I'm paying now to not live there.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. But
no, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I'm the same way, though. I mean, I do spend probably more time at the beach fall through spring than I do in the summer. And it's just so peaceful there and quiet. And I just made a new friend through X. And he's a parishioner at one of those churches I mentioned earlier, who every morning grabs his cup of coffee and his rosary, and he sits on the beach watching the sunrise and prays his rosary. And I'm thinking, man, that sounds all right. I think I'd like to do that,
Oh, there's your new habit to start. Except now you're ruining that guy's morning by taking up seat on the bench next to him. He's like, I usually enjoy the solitude, Ed.
I'll sit right next to him and I'll bring 12 guys. And
yeah, just turn it into a thing, and he's got to move further down the beach. Great job, Ed. You just ruined that guy's daily morning habit.
Oh, it's what I do.
But no, to see, the funny thing is, to me, that would actually bother me if
Really?
I had this morning. Yeah, it would. If I had
Oh,
this
if somebody sat next to you. Yeah, me
if I
too.
had this morning habit, because I have a morning habit. 5 a.m. I get up, I take the dog out, and then I've got at least 3 hours before anybody in my house, gets up to,
Yeah.
Start the day. It's just me and the dog, and I can read, I can pray, I can do the liturgy of the hours, I can whatever I want. And it's just quiet and it's solitude. I go out, sit on the front porch, have a smoke, drink my tea and watch the day slowly get brighter. Right.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden my wife goes, I'm going to start getting up at 5 with you. That's going to be my response. It's not because I don't want to spend time with my wife. It's my little thing. Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm oddly loyal to a bunch of random things. Like, I was going to go and get a haircut right after we got done doing this show, because my son, fortunately, is off all this week, so he doesn't need a ride in the random spots during the day. And I was like, you know what? I'll just go get a haircut today. Well, I go online and I'm booking an appointment with the girl who cuts my hair. And the next available appointment is Tuesday of next week. Oh, well, it looks like I don't get a haircut till Tuesday of next week. My wife's like, why? I was like, because the person who cuts my hair, she's not going to be back till next week or available till next week. Well, they've got like 15 people there. Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to let them cut my hair. Why? I don't like change. And I've gone to other people to get my hair cut before, and it's never the same.
No.
Right. I get the exact same haircut every single time, to the point where if I walk in and the stylist, the lady that cuts my hair, she doesn't ask me what I want. I just sit down, she starts cutting, and then I'm done like 15-20 minutes later.
Yeah.
And I'm good for another 2-3 weeks. I don't have to explain anything because we've worked out all the gaps and the the possible kinks in the plan. So I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So now I can't get my haircut till next week, which that's fine. I'm okay with embracing the scruffy look for a little while.
No, I'm with you on that too. There's I grew up not too far from here, a cute little town called Yardville, and there was a little.
That's the most uncreative name ever.
Well,
hey, look, there's a lot of yards here. What should we call this place? Well, everybody's got a yard. We'll call it Yardville.
Yardville. It's a great little town though, and we had a little barbershop there, and there was an old guy who cut my hair from the time I was born, and he was already like 160 when I was born, so he cut it for the first few years, and then his son, who took over the shop, and he cut my hair for the next 30 years, and now his son runs the same place. I love things like that. I love going to places, and that's what I love about those small little towns. I mean, there's still a shoe cobbler in the town I grew up in. We used to
we have one here. We've got one here. Yeah, it is great. But I've noticed, like, my wife thinks I'm strange for doing things like that. My wife can't quite comprehend why I'm like, if I go to a restaurant that's like a regular restaurant that I go to, I'm not talking some 5-star joint.
Yeah.
Just a family restaurant or a restaurant that I'm just going to for lunch with my wife. I'll sit in the exact same spot every single time, if possible. If I get to choose where I sit, and I'm not, I'll walk you to your table kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to the exact same spot. And if I have to get walked to my table, I know the table numbers because I've seen them on the receipts when I get my check. I will request that table if it's available. I don't like change. It's like if I walked out of this room right now, down the hallway and into my living room, and my wife had rearranged the furniture, as soon as she goes to the bathroom, I'm changing it back. I don't know what it is. I'm a stickler for things not changing. But my wife, she goes and gets her nails done regularly. She gets her hair done semi-regularly. And it doesn't matter who she goes to. She's like, well, this one's closer this day because we'll already be on this side of town. This place just opened up here. So,
Yeah.
or this place is, I'm like, I will just not get anything done if it's
No,
not available that day. But
exactly.
she
See,
doesn't care.
no, but and this answers a big question about like why you became Catholic and you don't like change. You wanted to be in a faith where they're not changing the doctrine and the dogma on a daily basis like some places are, you know.
Yeah, democracy sucks, man.
It does. In most circumstances it does.
Was it Socrates that said democracy is the least desirable of all forms of government?
I believe it was either him or AOC. I'm not sure.
AOC.
She's not a big fan of democracy.
No. That's probably true. No, I don't like change. And obviously, that's very much what draw me to the conclusion that Catholicism was true, is true, will always be true, is because since its inception, nothing has been removed from its beliefs.
No.
And anything that has been clarified or added on to the written form of dogma or doctrine doesn't contradict anything that was already there, because it can't. If they wanted to say, well, we will also make this, even if it's an unspoken, unwritten, understood, universally understood aspect of the faith, if they just want to go, well, it's not on page 79 yet, but we'll just write it down because we feel like we're having it written down. Anything that they did put there could not contradict what was already there, because nothing can ever be erased from it. So again, nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's right in line for my personality type. I can't change barbers. I get loyal to a certain pair of shoes. Like, I've got some Red Wing boots and I wear them all the time, not because they were $400, but because they're awesome boots and they're pretty much indestructible. They're the Iron Rangers. They're indestructible. And if they do get destroyed, they can be repaired, and I never have to get rid of the boots. They're like 50-year boots, and my feet aren't getting bigger or smaller at this point, so they're perfect.
They are.
Same thing with a pair of jeans. I own one pair of blue jeans. I own 2 pairs of khakis and 3 pairs of sweatpants, and like 1 pair of linen pants. That's it. And any replacements that I get for them are the same size, same color, same brand.
Of course.
It's almost autistic. Like, there cannot be any change.
No.
Right. But I don't know. It's weird to me that there's some people out there that will be like, oh, I get my haircut wherever is open.
Oh, good.
Like, no, it's like having a non-designated side of the bed.
Oh, no, that can't happen either.
No, I know people that say, oh, me and my wife just sleep on whatever side we fall asleep on. If she gets on that side and goes to sleep, I just get on the other. Listen, if I walked into my bedroom and my wife was asleep on my side of the bed,
somebody's getting rolled over.
The first thing I'm going to do is check her for a pulse. If she has one, I'm going to grab her by her ankle and drag her to her side. I don't care if it wakes her up. I'm not sleeping on her side. She's not sleeping on mine. It's not going to happen.
No.
Absolutely not. That is psychopathic behavior.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's so weird, man.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that is, whenever I go, none of this can change, and everything has to stay the same.
Yeah.
We don't switch brands of toilet paper. We don't switch brands of hot sauce.
No.
This has to be the same. It's very, it's great because it keeps everything the way it should be.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm very prideful about how easy and organized my life is.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was going through my bookcases, because I've got so many books just
Yeah.
from every genre, every era, some in multiple languages. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with all of them because I'm running out of space. So I was going through and I came across my copy of Paradise Lost by John
Wow.
Milton. Have you ever read that?
I certainly have. I think I'm sure. Didn't everyone have to read it at some point during their schooling?
You would think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a single adult my age that wasn't required to read, like, I don't know, The Crucible, The Great Gatsby, and A Tale of Two Cities,
Yeah.
right? Or Romeo and Juliet,
Romeo and Juliet.
right?
Wuthering Heights.
You may not.
Yeah.
Wuthering Heights, yeah.
That's
That was by the Bronte chick, right?
yeah. And it was all about Heathcliff and all that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And it was
Austin
part of
Thomas played
Darkness.
Heathcliff.
And yeah, that guy.
That
Heathcliff
guy.
Huxtable.
No one knows what the hell I'm talking about when I say
No.
that, but you. But no, I was going through Paradise Lost, and for people who haven't read that, they absolutely need to read it.
Mhm.
It's this retelling of the fall of Satan,
Mm.
and when he fell from heaven after rebelling against God. And it paints this picture of original sin, Satan's original sin, the root of all sin, which verifies the nature of our concupiscence, our proclivity for sin, which is pride,
Mm.
where Satan wanted to liken himself to God. In the poem, it's technically a book, but it's also technically a poem, right? In Paradise Lost, John Milton wrote this line that obviously we don't know if it actually was said between Michael the Archangel and Lucifer, but I think it perfectly illustrates man's concupiscence and original sin, especially when you have these prideful people who, and I'm not trying to stir the pot, but you have this very prideful arrogance that comes with a lot of Calvinists,
Mm-hmm.
and some Protestants where that, and I say some because it is not all, that are very anti-Catholic in nature, and they have this very prideful view that what their pastors and what their parents and the second, third, fourth hand information they've got about, what the Catholic Church allegedly teaches is true, right? But the line that John Milton put in the book, it's something like, it's better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. As that was the line that Lucifer responded to Michael the Archangel when he had asked, "Who is like unto God?" And that seems to be the most true statement about, well, from a lay perspective of theology and bad theology that we always hear from a lot of Protestant denominations. And again, I'm not trying to turn this into a Protestant bashing thing. I'm making a point. Even for people who are lapsed Catholics or atheists, it's very much the same. Why should I have to submit? Why should I have to kneel? It's better to be the ruler and the omnipotent sovereign of my own realm, even if it sucks.
Yeah.
Rather than get on my knees and submit to God.
Yeah.
the root of all sin is pride. The root of the proclivity to sin is pride. And people go, well, no. It was the love of money is the root of all sin. Yes, but there's a prideful aspect to that. You take so much pride in loving how much money you can accumulate. It leads to debilitated morality where you do things that compromise your morality and compromise your values so that you can hold on to that prideful feeling of having more money than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Pride is still the root of that root. And there's a difference between people who are ignorant of the truth. And when I say ignorant of the truth, I mean people who have just never heard of it. There's a concept within the Catholic Church. It's in the church doctrine, and it's called the pious pagan. Now, what that refers to is someone who has never heard of Christ, who has never heard of Christianity, who has never heard of anything remotely related to Christianity, but they still live a good life. They still live honorably. They still live morally. The Catholic Church teaches that person might still be saved because they aren't necessarily, you can't be condemned for being ignorant of something, right? Like if you grew up in the middle of nowhere in some blankety blankistan, right? Doesn't matter where, and you never heard of Jesus Christ because you never had any contact with any person that has heard of Jesus Christ, or if you did, they refrained from ever telling you about it. Well, obviously you're not going to be condemned for that. It's not your fault. You're not committing a mortal sin because you don't have knowledge of it and you're not rejecting the truth. But when you have the truth finally given to you, but you choose to reject that truth, it's because of pride, because you would rather be your own pope. You would rather be your own authority, your own sovereign, and the way that you decide that you're going to do it is the best way because you can't be wrong. Who is like unto God? Because you would rather reign than serve. You would rather be right than admit you're wrong. You'd rather hang on to that pride than embrace the humility that you are not the ultimate authority of God's word. And so I'm looking at this book and I'm like, I wonder how early is too early to start reading it to my kids. My youngest is 9. I think he would grasp the concept of Paradise Lost. I mean, he attends catechism on a regular basis. We do catechism here as well in our homeschool program. This year he begins Church Latin of the 3rd millennium with my wife. So getting that classical education on over here. But I think he'll get it. You know what I mean? I think he'll get it if I paraphrase some of the things or if I stop and explain some things.
Sure.
Because it is such an amazing telling of the fall. Right. And obviously it was his poem that lent to all of these negatively theologic, but entertaining theories about, when Satan fell from heaven, as well as a third of all of the angels, they landed in different places all over the earth. I actually think that was the plot of the Pope's Exorcist, with Russell Crowe, where he played Father Amorth.
Mhm.
The story was that when Satan fell from heaven, along with a third of all of the angels, they all impacted on different spots of the earth. And these spots are unholy places that are where people are there, or they become more susceptible to demonic possession. It's very terrible theology, but it's entertaining, right? It makes for good TV. It makes for an entertaining movie. But the one thing that can't be denied is when you reject a truth, you're making it known that you know better, that your personal truth is better than an objective truth.
Mhm.
And all objective truths come from God. So when God says this is the way it's done, and you go, no, it isn't, that's not right. Jim and Greg and Uncle Bob told me so. And then I thought they were wrong, but I came up with this and it makes the most sense. So this has got to be it. It's one of the hardest things to break, especially as a man, is that feeling of pride. Because you do take pride in things. You should be proud of your accomplishments. You should be proud of things that you've done. You should be, as long as they're honorable. You should be proud of taking care of your family. You should have some pride as a man. The problem is when you let that pride overrule reason.
Mhm.
And when you let it become overpowering of humility. I am only as right as I am, and wherever that is wherever that is. It's not a tangible line that can be drawn. I am only correct as far as I am correct, but then that line happens and I'm incorrect past that. We have an infallibility about us. It's kind of in the nature of humans to be fallible. But I see the attacks on the Catholic Church, whether they are physical attacks where people are vandalizing the churches, or spiritual attacks where you see the numbers in attendance at different parishes start to dwindle because people slowly fall out of love with Christ as they let the world overtake them. Or whether they're just mean rhetoric from willfully ignorant people on social media or in person. You've got your Baptist Reverend Grandpa wants to beat you over the head with the very thin edited King James version because you come into the church, And then, of course, they attack the truths. And no matter how many times you tell them the truth, no matter how many times you explain the truth, their pride will not let them see it as a truth. Their pride locks them into this because when you're wrong and you have to admit you're wrong, if you're wrong about one thing, it has this effect that's very similar to pulling a loose thread on a sweater. Everything starts to unravel the more you pull on that thread of truth. And once you unravel all of that loose thread, the clothes come off and there you are, exposed and bare and naked. And from that point, it's an awesome segue, by the way. I'm so glad this happened. You have to put upon yourself the full armor of God.
Mm-hmm.
And in the only way you can wear the armor of God is to strip away all of the things that you were wearing previously. And so as frustrating as it may be when you see people blatantly lying about the teachings of the Catholic Church for whatever reason that be, whether it be they're just giving you second, third, fifth, 20th hand information because they've never actually learned what it is. They learned what Catholics believe from people who aren't Catholic. Or you have people who know, but they're too prideful to say, well, maybe I'm wrong. 2,000 years of tradition can't be right. My interpretation has to be right. And then willfully attack that because, and the thing about it is they're not attacking the truth from that angle because they want to spread the truth. They're attacking it publicly and vocally because they want other like-minded individuals to validate them, which then fuels their feeling of pride. So as frustrating as it is when you hear these attacks, that's the first thing you need to start looking for. And I've found it to make things so much easier for me. Chances are it's coming from a place of pride, and that pride being attacked to where the possibility of them being wrong hurts. And they're not willing or ready to go down that rabbit hole and say, I was wrong, because they think somehow that makes them weak. But that's just some of the things I've observed over this past week. And it's led me to trying to discern where I'm going to end up as far as vocation wise, because I'm in the active stage of discerning joining a third order now. So we'll see where that leads. But I just don't want to jump into one because, oh, it looks cool, man. You know, because then it does kind of dribble over onto the prideful side of things. Well, I get a cool cape and a sword if I become a 4th degree Knight of Columbus, which is not a third order. It's just a fraternal order. No. But you know what I mean.
I do. You got to become an OP. You got to go with the Dominicans. That's my
I speak Spanish, so
that helps right there. You got a leg up right there.
Yeah.
But, tremendous amount of study involved. You'll learn a lot about the faith. You know, you get to get out into the community as a group and also individually to do some work. It's pretty cool. A lot of prayer involved. Liturgy of the hours every day.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of rosary every day. It's good stuff. But there's a lot of good orders out there. A lot of good ones.
Yeah, I was looking at Opus Dei as well.
Yeah. Good dudes. You can't go wrong.
I mean, you could join the Jesuits.
Well, I don't consider them an order of the Catholic Church, so I don't.
Well, listen. The thing about the Jesuits is it would be so much cooler if they all weren't so unbearable. Because if you think about it, the Jesuits are supposed to be the Swiss Army knife of the Pope. You need nail clippers, boom, we got a guy for that. You need this, we got a guy for that. They're supposed to be like warrant officers in the military. They're the experts of their field and fiercely loyal to the church. It would be awesome if they weren't also unbearable to the point where you're like, if it didn't cost me excommunication, I would hit them in the face. Right? It would be very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to sell insurance. So KOC is kind of like, do I want to sell? Now, look, I'm not saying the Knights are bad people. The Knights are awesome. No. And obviously joining the Knights of Columbus do not preclude you from joining a third order. I mean, I know lay Dominicans and Franciscans and other oblates that are Knights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's completely fine. But I don't know. I just don't know where I want to end up yet, which is why I'm putting a lot of effort into the discernment.
Yeah. Well, you can take your time with it, you know.
No, I needed to make a decision right now.
Do you? Okay. And Jesuit.
Very much so. I don't even like saying that word.
They used to be cool.
They used to be cool. Now you're blocked by more of them than you even knew existed.
It's phenomenal how many. I think the last time I checked, it was 27 Jesuits have blocked me.
That's the thing they all have in common.
That they do. Their hatred of Ed Jacko.
Yeah, they actually have weekly meetings about you. So there's this guy in Jersey. All right, we want to make sure that no one has positively interacted with him.
Yeah.
If you do interact, it needs to be to shun him.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to interact at all, you need to make sure he's blocked on social media.
They're a very
Then
sensitive.
they move on to the actual minutes of the meeting.
Yeah, yeah, but they're a very sensitive lot, and I've told many of people. But like when it came to, like, say, Father Martin, I wanted to actually engage with him, so I was very cautious when I would respond. I wasn't just guns a blazing when I would respond to a tweet of his or something. I would simply point out how what he was tweeting was in conflict with church teaching. And I would do it in a nice and one time, and this was the thing that always fascinated me. That unless it was just a straw that broke the camel's back, but he had posted something, and I simply responded with a quote from Matthew. I didn't accuse him of anything. I didn't yell at him. I didn't scream. I just simply responded with a quote from Matthew, with no other words around it, and I immediately was blocked. So I'm thinking, I've got a question in order where they block you for quoting from scripture. I don't know about those guys.
Yeah, like I said, they would be cool. And what's bad is, sometimes Jesuit priests are portrayed as cool dudes in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Like Edgar Ramirez played a Jesuit priest in what was that movie? See No Evil with Eric Bana, about that New York cop that became what is he now? Like an apologist, weird like paranormal. He does some kind of investigations to see whether or not he's got to call the Vatican and see, like, hey, I think you might want to send an exorcist over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that. But he's done some like writing too. I don't know the full story of the dude. I just kind of remember that part. But no, and like I said, it's probably pride that causes them to block you, because if they say something that is antithetical to church teaching and you turn around and you make the statement, which wasn't even your statement, it was said by a saint, the guy that was palling around with Christ himself.
Yeah.
He said it. So does that mean if Matthew himself had have said it to Father Martin, he would have been, I'm blocking you. Fingers in my ears, la 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 kind of thing.
The old saying, don't block the messenger,
Yeah. I remember when Abraham Lincoln said that at the second address of Gettysburg, which is very little known. Most people didn't know he had a second speech. It was in the parking lot. And it was very impromptu. Right next to the gift shop. It was very impromptu. Fascinating story, though.
Yes, it is.
But he didn't have a long speech then, because he had a vampire to hunt. He was trying to get it rolling,
get it going. Yeah.
No, the more I think about it, and the more I think of all of the times I've fallen into sin, and the times that I've fallen into despair, it's usually because I've been way too prideful. Sure. And the despair part is I've been way too prideful, and then the rug gets pulled out from under me, just like every crypto bro. And I got to face the music, and it sucks. Right? And it's like that. Pride comes before the fall. Pride comes
before the fall. Yeah.
But listen, it literally came before the fall. The fall. Like the fall.
Yeah.
I can't express enough how much I recommend that people who haven't read it, I don't care if you're an atheist, it's a great read. Even if you only take a secular lesson from it, which was it was entertaining, and there's an overarching moral of the story. If that's all you take from it, fine, I don't care. But it's well worth the read. It's beautifully written, and it paints probably the best description of Satan and the nature of evil and pride in all of modern literature. And I say modern, even though I think Paradise Lost was written in the 1600s. So the term modern is very relative. I will say that if you're reading it, there are some words that don't exist anymore in it. Like obsolete words that people just don't use anymore. It's like the middle of the 1600s and the guy's English, so there's a lot of words that they used and are no longer in existence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great read. It's a great look into the role that pride plays in our lives. And it's very easy to slip into it because it feels so good until you get your ass beat by an archangel and cast out of heaven. There's that.
There is that. That hurts.
Yeah, pretty sure that didn't feel good. Oh, well, I'll defer to your judgment here. But
yeah.
This seems like a great time to bring something out of the basement.
Oh, yeah? Let me
It really does. I'll defer to your judgment. No.
No, that's fine.
You don't have to unlock the door and let them out. You can do that off camera, off mic when we're not live. But if you've brought an object,
I always have stuff. But, and it's interesting.
Well, that's because you know what? You say this. You say, I always have stuff just sitting out here on the coffee table or whatever.
Yes.
I get the feeling like the only clean spot in your house is the spot that I can see on camera, and everything else is just like giant piles of clutter where you're like, oh, there's a story behind this paper clip.
Actually, I keep my dwelling quite clean. The basement, on the other hand, that's where the stacks and stacks of stuff are. And I have a coffee table that has storage beneath it, and so there's always a few items in there on standby. But since it's underneath the coffee table, you can't see it. So even that looks neat and clean. But this is something, and we are talking. And I always say this: it just so happens that whatever conversation we wind up going with, whatever I bring can be linked to it in some way, shape, or form. And I don't think that's. I mean, it's certainly not by our own design, but it might be by God's. I'm not sure. But
we are not organized at all. We just get on this.
I know, right? Talking. We just start chatting, but this is, and I brought 2 copies of this. This is the Song and Service Book for Ship and Field for Army and Navy, and this is the World War II version. Brought 2 of them. I don't know why I have probably about a half dozen of these. It's a beautiful little book. And it's got everything you need if you are in the Army or Navy and it's either Jewish, a Protestant, or Catholic. And the reason I say it kind of links in today is because what fascinates me. So this is the 1942 version, and when you look through it, they actually have a typical Jewish service in here, so you can follow along. And they have a very typical Catholic service. And quite frankly, if you read through it, you think, okay, I might as well be sitting in my pew in 2024 and flipping through the missal because I'm seeing the exact same thing, which is another thing that we talk about with the Catholic Church. It does not change, But one of the things they have in here is a Protestant service, the Order for Protestant Services. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you have a Protestant service? But if you think back, it's really within the last several decades that things have gone completely off the wheels, I think, with all these various denominations that pop up and folks that refer to themselves as non-denominational. Because I've attended a lot of these different services, and no 2 of them are alike. No 2 of them are even remotely alike. But back in 1942, so a mere 82 years ago, you could still have a generic Protestant service, and anyone who referred to themselves as Protestant would flip through this book and say, okay, that's kind of what we do at my church when I'm not on board this ship, or when I'm not out in the field and with my compatriots there. So it's fascinating to me that in such a short period of time, at least the part of this that says typical Protestant service has become kind of obsolete because, again, and as I read through it, I've been to a number of Protestant and non-denominational services, and they look nothing like what is written in here. The Catholic one, yes. The Jewish one, I'm not very familiar with how the Jews run their services, but I've seen some on TV, and this was very similar to that as well. But the Protestant one, not so much. The only thing that would be you might find that would be the same would be in the back. They have all these different hymns and things, and quite a few of those have remained over the years. And a lot of Christian artists have redone a lot of these hymns and things like that. But I find that fascinating, and I love having these books because these were all owned by servicemen, servicewomen. Actually, World War II, probably servicemen. And I've got so many different prayer books that were printed for the purpose of distributing to either Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine kind of individuals, and mostly from World War II, some from World War I, and some from some other more recent wars as well. But it's a time, and some of them they'll have inscriptions and things inside of them, were notes that were taken by the person who owned it. And I love that. Here's a guy that's out serving his country. He's out in the middle of, he's the Pacific, the Atlantic. He's battling Nazis or the Japanese or whoever. And he's going to pull out this book and he's going to say his prayers. He's going to keep that relationship going with God, because he knows that that's the most important thing he has when he's out there and he's either in battle or about to be in battle. You've got to be right with God at all times. And so that's why I love having these prayer books, because I try to put myself in the position of the men who would have owned these, and how valuable these books were to them, what they meant to them. Especially some of the older ones, some of the ones from like World War I and things like that. And I can't imagine being in a foxhole in France and pulling out this well-worn prayer book as the bombs are going off all around you. And just thinking, this is my protection, not the gun, not my helmet, this book of prayers, this lifeline to God, so that if I don't make it through the night, hopefully I'll be in the arms of Christ in the morning. So I have a fascination for these kind of things. They're very dear to me, and I've got, I'm sure a bunch more of them will make their way to the show at some point, especially some of the older ones, because and the ones where guys were keeping notes about what they were going through and referencing God in those notes. And I mean, some of it bring a tear to your eye, honestly. That love and devotion to our Lord, especially in such a time of trouble. So that's what we brought today. These song and service book for Ship and Field, Army and Navy, 1942 volume. Good stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that reminds me, especially when you were saying about, right there in the foxhole, bombs coming down, you pull out this book of prayers. It reminds me of that pocket altar that you had showed me. It's so incredible. It pops open, lays up, folds out. It's very Inspector Gadget-ish.
Yeah.
It looks way more complicated than it actually seems to be. But yeah, I've always found it admirable that, because there's some things you just can't fake.
Yeah.
And you can't fake a devotion to God. I mean, you can, but not in certain situations.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you can't fake bravery when bad things start happening. Right. You can, like, if your instinct is to run away, well then okay, you're just human, by the way, if that happens.
Yeah.
But you can't fake a devotion to God, and you can't fake that God is the number one and most important thing in your life in an event like you're getting shot at. Someone's shooting at you, and if you're in war or not, and you have a gun, the first instinct is, shoot back, take cover, shoot back. But many, many times you see someone, and you see these instances where someone has professed to be utterly and completely devoted to God.
Mm-hmm.
And in a situation where the foxholes are coming, the foxholes are coming. They're in a foxhole and the bombs are coming. If the foxholes were coming from the sky, we've got an inception problem.
We got a problem.
we got a big issue. But no, if you're in a foxhole, the bombs are coming down, bullets are flying past your head, and the first thing you do is you reach into your pocket and you pull out your rosary and you start praying the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
That is, if that's your instinct, that means you are authentically living devotion to God.
Yeah.
If the bombs are coming down and the first thing you do is you make the sign of the cross, you say an act of contrition, that's your first instinct, not duck, not run, but to get right with God. You can't fake that.
No.
Right?
No.
You can't fake. It's like you don't fake bravery. If someone starts shooting at you and your instinct is you just start running towards that person who's shooting at you, it might be kind of stupid, but it's also very, very brave. You can't fake that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's that pocket altar we were talking about.
Of course, you had it right. Of
course,
there.
I was ready for everything, and the prayer book that comes along with it, and this is so well worn. I know that this was reached for on many a scary night, and just like you say, I mean, because if you don't really truly have that devotion, you're not going to be reaching for this. You're not. If you're professing your faith, but it's not true, this is the last thing you're going to pull out of your pocket. So when I see this and I see how well worn it is and how dog-eared the pages of that prayer book are, I know that somebody took this very seriously, and this meant more to them in that foxhole than their gun did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Well, that leaves a question. What's the greatest sin that you commit every single day? You absolutely fail to love the Lord, your God, with all your mind, all your heart, and all your soul. You absolutely fail every single day. Why? Because we live in this world. We have things to do. We've got our wife and our kids and our families and our jobs and our barbers and our dogs, all these things on our minds.
Yeah.
Where God is not the dead center focus all the time. The question is, the answer is in the question. What's your greatest sin? Is by not defaulting to God at every instance.
Sure.
It's so easy to get wrapped up in that pride. I can handle this. I can figure this out. By the grace of God, you can.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to remember that I've got stuff to do. And it's so easy to forget. Oh, yeah, there's that God guy. When you get wrapped up in the daily grind of everything you have to do. But I love how it came full circle. It's always the pride. I got it. I can figure this out. I'm going to duck down here into this foxhole and I'm going to run over here. No. First instinct that you cannot fake, reaching down, grabbing that rosary, squeezing it, saying your Hail Marys, praying directly to God. You can't fake that.
No.
And the only way to make that become instinctual is to make it a habit.
Yep.
So just a quick reminder before I thank you all for liking, sharing, subscribing, and shoving this Catholic message in front of your anti-Catholic friends. Make it a habit to intentionally rely on God every single day, and it'll become instinctual.
Sure.
But that's it for today. We're wrapping up. So thanks for watching, subscribing, liking, and sharing.
God bless everybody.